So now I'm going to say what your responses are, and then I'm going to turn it on. So who do you, I'll give you the thumbs up when it's on. Who do you want to talk to first? You don't care?
I just decided to hear.
Do you want Dad to say something first?
Sure.
All right, you got the big first words.
Okay. Oh. I'm Michaela.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you really good.
A lot better.
Yeah.
What do you think? How does it sound? Do you think it sounds loud? Does it sound good? Does it sound clear?
Yeah.
All of it?
All of it. It works. Yeah.
Hey.
And it's all mine.
That's good.
Yeah.
Great. Well done.
Oh my gosh. Yay.
Easy. I know it's been a road, hasn't it?
Yeah.
I'm happy we're
Nobody
here.
knows that more than Dr. Sue can.
You just made my year by watching your smile right now. Makes me so happy.
I probably made her career so hard.
No, listen, you have added so much. I literally have tears in my eyes right now. Very happy. Very happy.
You have to struggle with it, so. I'm sorry. No, it's okay. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, this is really funny.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. You're allowed to be sad, for sure. It's hard because you've been through so much, you know.
I feel like there's no good option for me. It's not your fault or anything. It is, you know?
Yeah.
Hey guys, it's Michaela and you're watching FunsizedStyle. Today's video, I really hope, is not the first video that you're watching on my channel. It is not going to be as uplifting as my other videos. It's a part of my life and something that I want to share, and I feel like I owe you guys, and it's way overdue, even though I don't owe anybody anything. Like, it's my platform and I can post whatever I want on here, but I've shared everything about this circumstance up until this point, and I just feel like it's finally time for me to share. And I also have some other videos that I want to share, but wouldn't make sense until I share more about this. So I feel like it's inevitable. There's also this weird shadow on my face. The way I have my mic set up and my ring light, like, it's kind of not right today, but I'll fix that for the next video. But I can't do anything about that right now. So I just wanted to share something that happened almost a year ago. I'm sure you guys know, and you most definitely know if you follow me on Instagram. I upload on there a lot more, daily pretty much. I am going to share a hearing loss update and the experience of having my hearing implant surgically removed. That was something that I brought you guys through that journey in its entirety. It was obviously a roller coaster of emotions, and it still is. A lot of unanswered questions and circumstances. There's been a lot of heartache, a lot of joy, and a lot more heartache. I just wanted to share what brought that decision and how I made that decision and the results of making that decision and where I'm at now. It was really hard to talk about when it initially happened. Still not my favorite thing to talk about because I'm trying really hard to move on, but because I've shared my experience on social media, inevitably I still get questions about it, which is fine. Like, I'm so glad to educate. If I'm being honest, I am really leery to share this video because I don't want my incredibly rare complication and circumstance to steer people away seeking the use of one of these hearing devices, because it is truly life-changing. And the 6 months that I was able to use it, it was incredibly life-changing, and I would hate for somebody to decide not to seek this option because of my experience out of fear. It's been one of the biggest things holding me back from sharing this, because I don't want my experience to affect someone else's decision. But at the same time, this is so unheard of, and I still have yet to hear from anybody who has had this experience, and maybe I am the only one. I don't know. I think in the same way, it's also important to note. Those are just some things I wanted to preface before I get into this. August of 2023, I made the gut-wrenching decision to have my hearing implant surgically removed due to unexplained chronic daily headaches, severe chronic daily headaches. As you guys know, I've shared all of that and kind of what we tried before, obviously going to the extreme of removing the implant. I did not want to let it go. It brought me such joy and freedom, and it brought me a lot of joy. It was something in my life that I prayed for a really long time, and then to have that, then experience that joy and have that taken away and it's still harder than anyone could imagine. I put off this decision as long as I possibly could, but I started getting chronic daily headaches 6 months after my hearing implant surgery, and the device itself was working great. My bones were holding it well. In fact, spoiler alert, during the surgery, it didn't come out quite as easily as my surgeon expected it to, because my bone was holding the device so well, which was a good thing. Another spoiler alert is my biggest fear deciding to do the surgery was that I would not only go through the gut-wrenching experience of having that removed from me, taken away from me, but also have it not resolve my chronic daily, and I would be left with no hearing implant and chronic daily headaches. That's my circumstance now. The surgery was not successful in resolving my chronic daily headaches. The reason that I made the decision to have my hearing implant surgically removed is because during the onset of the headaches, how they presented, it just made sense that it was a hearing implant, because that was the only thing in my life that had changed in those 6 months of onset. And I used the hearing implant for 6 months without any issues, and then got the device in February of 2022, and then started having headaches in September of 2022. And I finally decided to make the decision to have it removed in August of 2023. I originally was going to have it removed October of 2022, but I just couldn't make myself bear that decision to make it that quickly and have it taken from me. I was just hoping and praying that, like, somehow by some miracle that God would heal me and take away the headaches, and that I would be able to keep my hearing implant. That didn't end up being the case. In August of 2023, I just decided I couldn't take it anymore, and I wasn't able to use the implant anyway from September 2022, August 2022. Anyway, the device was still inside of me, but when I would put the external piece on to be able to hear, headaches would get worse. I couldn't use it anyway. The internal piece was still inside of me from September 22 to August 2023, because I just couldn't bear to make the decision and lose a piece of freedom and something that brought me joy, even though looking back, obviously, from September to August, I lost that joy and that freedom anyway, because I couldn't use the device. But I was obviously, during those months, was just praying that this was a fluke and that God would heal me and take away my headaches. I knew that He had the ability to do so. It was His will. And ultimately, I did. It's easy for me to say, I think it's easy for all of us to say, I want to do God's will, until you're faced with the unimaginable circumstance of will. And the question that I've gotten asked is, how do you still believe and know that God is good when He's taken this from you? Because how could a good father take from a child, the ability to hear? God is not good based on our circumstances. God is good because He is God and we know His character. I will get into that more, but that is something that I had to surrender to Him and come to terms with, even though it's really hard. I wanted to be able to strongly say that I wanted to do His will. In reality, I didn't want to, because I wanted to keep it. I didn't want it to be taken away from me. It brought me so much joy and freedom, and why would I want to lose that? Why would anybody want to lose that? And I think that it's not wrong of me to want that. Obviously, God had a purpose for it for 6 months that I did have it, and that the surgery went well, and He carried me through that. And I did get to experience that joy for that short time. But obviously, this was something that the goal was for me to have this device lifelong. That wasn't the outcome, or at least not right now. I think it takes a lot of vulnerability to admit one thing that I try to stay faithful to is wanting the Lord's will, but when our own desires triumph that, it's hard. It's not wrong of me to want to hear. But in the same way, another thing that I share with people this experience and about any ability that we gain or lose is that it's not my right to be able to hear. It was never my right to be able to have this device. It's a gift. It's what I've clung to and continue to cling to with the loss of this and the trials of this, and that I continue to still deal with every day with chronic daily headaches. And it was never my right to be able to hear or to have this device. Every ability that we have is a gift. It's not a right. I was never entitled for the ability to have that. People, I think, would get confused by that because it's like, obviously, something as simple as being able to hear. It's not wrong to want that. God has a plan for each and every one of us, and that looks different. And the Lord gives each of us different gifts. And, for example, my spinal fusion surgery went well, and that was obviously not being paralyzed and not having a trach is so much more important to me than the ability to hear. I have friends that can't have a spinal fusion, and so we just all have different gifts and circumstances that the Lord provides us with, and that's part of living in a broken world. God's goodness is not based on our circumstances, and it's based on His God, and He is good because He is God, and I can look back at His faithfulness throughout my entire life and seeing how He's carried me through each day to carry me through really tough circumstance. And I am also not afraid to say that I've asked God why. I think as Christians we're told not to question God, and I believe that to be true. Like, we should never stay there and spend our whole life questioning God, but in my own human form it's hard for me to comprehend why a good father would take the ability away for one of his children to hear. And I'm not God, obviously, and so I don't have the ability to see the bigger picture. Obviously, I still don't. I have asked God why. I'm not ashamed to say that, and I think that we all have, and if we haven't, we are lying to ourselves and to others, and if we haven't, then we probably will be faced with a circumstance that we will, and our finite brains are not able to comprehend God's plan. Faith is truly believing in what we cannot see, and so it's really hard for us, it's human of us, to ask why. Again, it's also obviously sinful to stay there and constantly go about each and every day asking God why in every circumstance, and so I think that's something to think about. Not only wanted to share about this experience for me, but these are just thoughts that I've had to wrestle with and face the last year, and going through everything and making the decision to have my hearing implant removed. I don't remember if the last video, I'll link it here, the last video that I filmed about this. I still had the implant in my head at the time that I filmed that video. I can't remember if I said that we tried occipital nerve block, see if that would help. It did not. Yeah, we gave that a good call try. I had a bunch of them and it just was not successful. In fact, I would say it maybe even made my head a little bit worse. Following that's when I decided to really make a decision several months later to have the device removed. I, like I say, toiled over it for so long and prayed so long, and I think that another thought that I wanted to share is I realize so often we pray for peace in decisions that we make, and I think the reality is, like, not always going to have peace with the decisions that we make, and we just have to make those decisions and have faith that the Lord will carry us no matter the outcome, because that was one of my main prayers, is that I wanted to be able to be confident in the decision that I was making to remove this device. And I wanted to feel peace, and I wanted to be content. I guess that's the big thing. I wanted to have contentness, that's not even a word, but contentness beyond circumstance, like beyond comprehension, circumstance that I should not feel content in. I wanted God to provide that to me. The reality is we are not always going to feel peace when we are faced with difficult decisions. Sometimes we have to do really hard things and trust God in the process. It doesn't always mean that we are going to feel peace, especially when it's something that we want. I did not feel peace in the decision that I made, even right up to going to the OR, like the day of my surgery. Normally with surgeries, I'm so full of joy and excited and hopeful for the outcome, and like this was the very first surgery out of 30 that I've ever had that like I was not excited for. Like I knew coming out of this I was not going to have a good outcome. Like I was going to lose something that brought me a lot of joy, a lot of freedom, and like that's not something to be excited about. And there was the hope that it would cure my headache. I was really worried that it didn't, wouldn't, and obviously it didn't, and that fear, I guess, came true. It was just a really hard time. Like I just remember like sitting there and just like being sad. And one song that I've clung to during that time was God Is With Us by the Afters. I highly recommend you listen to it. I'll try and link it. And I listened to that like 4 or 5 times in re-op. Like it was just, I was sad, and I think that it's also okay to be sad in circumstances like that. Like God gives us emotions and we lament, and there's grace for that. And I think that I wouldn't be human if I wasn't heartbroken over that. Like obviously the device gave me a lot of joy and freedom, and it was such an answered prayer for those 6 months that I had it. It was a level of heartbreak that I never knew. I don't know, like this experience in particular was like so hard for me, and it was just really hard for me, and it still is in a lot of ways, like especially when I am in environments that are specifically hard for me to hear. I think back to like, dang, that was so much easier when I had my hearing implant, and I'm just so grateful for my team who walks with me in these really difficult times. I actually had my surgery to remove the device on August 15th, 2023. I got a text message from my surgeon that night, and I want to read it to you. She was seeing how I was doing. Well, obviously she knew I wasn't doing well. She saw me in one of the worst days of my life, and I think so often we forget how big of a role medical professionals play in our lives, and I think that's why it's so important to build a good team, because they see you in your most vulnerable, difficult days, and more so than like your family. Obviously my immediate family, like my parents, were there, but like my aunts, uncles, cousins, friends, like they weren't there that day and didn't have a front row seat to the most difficult day of my life, and my surgeon did. This is a compilation video of thoughts that I wanted to share from this experience, and just also my experience as a whole. So I know this video is all over the place, but these are just thoughts that I wanted to share. This is her text message to me that night, and she said, "Hi Michaela, you are an unbelievably strong person who has gone through more than most people will in their lifetime. But what is most impressive is your tremendous mental strength and spirit." And to say that, especially that day, like, it meant a lot to me, because I feel like I didn't have any mental strength that day. Like, I had nothing to give. Like, I ever did when I, like, looked at her was cry, because I was just so sad and I knew what was coming. But it's your tremendous mental strength and spirit. I cannot imagine what it must have been like to have that implant taken out after you heard so well with it. But please do know that I am on your team through thick and thin. You did great today, and I hope you have a smooth recovery and that your pain improves. Obviously, we know that that didn't happen, but just like the fact that like she would take the time out of her day to like back in and like encourage me, and that text message like from her cell phone, I'm just really grateful. Obviously, it didn't have the outcome that we had hoped for, and in the process I did lose my hearing implant, but I'm really grateful to have a team to lean on during that time and continue to lean on. That day was really hard. It was the second hardest day of my life. So this might seem a little dramatic, but like that was even more difficult than having 9 screws bolted into my head and undergoing 17 hours worth of spinal surgery in 2 weeks, because all of that other stuff, I got the outcome that we all prayed for. And like, obviously this didn't turn out the same way, and so it was just a lot harder. And I think too, like I mentioned in the beginning, every surgery that I've ever had, like, it did something to improve my quality of life. Obviously, then I have that outcome. It just made it a lot more difficult in a lot of ways. So this kind of like an FAQ too. One of the questions that I've been getting, that I've gotten, is do you regret having tried the implant at all, given the outcome? That is a really difficult question, especially in the beginning for me to answer, because in the beginning I would have answered yes. I think I probably did answer yes in the beginning. It is so much more difficult to, obviously, you all know how I lost my hearing. I'll link my hearing loss playlist. I've done dozens of videos about that journey. Obviously lost my hearing and then regained it with the implant and then lost it again. So to experience that joy and that freedom and have that taken away is like so much more difficult than having not knowing what it's like. To experience the other side, a whole lot harder than like not knowing what it's like. On the other hand, I know that I would always go about life wondering is there something out there that I'm missing that like could make my life so much easier? Is there something that I'm missing that I'm not giving a chance? Would that work for me? Like, I would always wonder. You're not gonna know unless you try, and what's really unique about my experience is that this outcome that I had, none of us predicted this. The only complication that we predicted or was a possibility was that my bone may not be strong enough to hold the device, and that didn't end up being a complication at all. In fact, like I said, it didn't come out quite as easily as my surgeon expected because my bone was holding it so strongly. The complication that we hoped or that knew was a risk wasn't even a problem whatsoever. And then a complication that pretty much no one else has ever experienced is something that I have faced. So that just goes to show, like, you never know unless you try it. I think that goes for a lot of things in life. So much harder to lose that ability again to hear, regain it, especially after like a 10-year journey, and then have it taken away again. It has been one of the most difficult parts of the experience for sure. And I wouldn't lie about that. That was around the time, obviously, that I took a big YouTube break when I starting in October of 2022. Was only uploading like periodically, if at all, because I was faced with that decision. Like, it just felt weird and very unnatural for me to just come on YouTube and talk about makeup and lipstick and eyeshadow and clothes, like when I was facing the unimaginable. I want to say it didn't matter, but I guess obviously it didn't because I'm talking about it or like doing videos. But I'm just the kind of person, like, I can't just like fake it till I make it. Like, I was obviously really just like bumming, and I think obviously that's something to bum about. My life obviously did a 180 when I got the device, and then now we are going backwards, and so it's a lot. And 2023 was just really hard for a lot of reasons. It was just a really hard year overall, and so I just needed to like step away from YouTube and just like focus. And I was also finishing college and trying to make this decision for surgery, and like it was just a lot. And I would like to say that I have come to accept it. I think another thing that's really difficult about this experience is obviously removing the implant didn't help my headaches whatsoever. Like, I have not even had the slightest bit of improvement. It's made that reality harder to accept because it just obviously I went through all that and it didn't do what we had hoped. And we knew that going into surgery, but again, the only thing in my life that had changed during the 6 months of onset of headaches was the implant. So like, who am I to think that like it would be anything else? And I've had other things tested and like it's all fine. So like, still to this day, we don't know what is causing these chronic daily headaches. I still believe with every ounce of my being that something happened during that surgery or during the healing process. Getting the device 6 months after my surgery to have the device put in is like when the headache started. Like, what could have changed during that time? I did have a brain MRI done for a few reasons. Obviously, the biggest being like, I have never struggled with headaches in my life. Prior to this experience, I can count on one hand the amount of headaches I've had in my entire life. I'm just never like been prone to headaches. Say I've never had one, but nothing like, and can count on one hand at the amount of headaches I've had in 25 years. Back in November of last year, 2023, we wanted to give it like many months to heal, or like many for like my brain and my head to heal. So August, September, October, November, like that's 4 months. And so like that's a good amount of time. Like my surgeon said that like if it was the implant, like that should be plenty of time for you to know if it made a difference. Like having the device removed, and obviously during that time it wasn't, and I was still having chronic daily headaches. And then then I started like going down this rabbit hole, like what if it's, I don't know, like you just go to the worst scenario. So it sounded some alarms on some things, like one being one thing I've talked about before on here, and I've had a scare of this before from a incorrect radiology report, but was basilar invagination. It's a condition with the neck that's really common in patients with type 3 OI, but I have been scanned for BI twice prior to this, and my neurosurgeon who treats dozens of patients with this every year assured me that I do not have it. He presented my case to like a neurosurgery board, like I don't have BI, but say that it like could never form, I guess. So like during the brain MRI, they were also checking for BI again. What's really dangerous about it is if I were to in some kind of accident or hit my head just right, like I would literally die. Like if you have it, you pretty much have to have surgery. One of the alarms for this condition is chronic daily headaches. We just again wanted to check for a third time to see if I had BI. So I'm not getting scanned for BI ever again. Like clear that I don't have it. Obviously in the brain MRI, we did check for other things, scary things, and like praise the Lord. I'm not glad that I didn't have anything wrong with my brain. Obviously it doesn't give us any answers. From never having a headache a day in my life to chronic daily headaches in 6 months of an event, like obviously something within my body has changed and nobody seems to know the answer. My neurosurgeon also referred me to an ophthalmologist. I had my eyes checked. My eyes are good pressure in my eyes, and like my vision is great. So like it's not my eyes. I just had so many things checked to get this ruled out for my headaches. And the reason that I believe that it's structural something that's causing these headaches is that not like hormonal or like not like, I don't know, something I'm eating, is because of the way that it presents is like very structural based, because I don't have like vision abnormalities with these headaches. I don't get nauseous. I don't have any other symptoms but like pressure in my head, in the back and the top of my head. Occasionally on the side that the implant was on, but not as often as the top and back of my head. I feel completely fine when I first get in my wheelchair for the day, and then as the day progresses, my headaches get worse and worse. So that's how it presents every day. It never changes. Like around the same time every day, it presents the same way every day. Some days it is worse than others, but I haven't been able to pinpoint a trigger as like, oh, if I eat this, like it's just so up and down. The way it presents, the timing, the location is like clockwork every single day. That's why I believe it's something structural. I don't know, like I'm obviously not a doctor. I've gone to like so many different doctors. The other reason why I wanted to make this video is because I did go to a neurologist and I finally got referred to one of those. It was one of the worst. I'm laughing because it's not funny, but it was just so bad. It was one of the worst experiences I have ever had with a medical doctor. Like the reason I wanted to make this video is because the next video I'm gonna film as I want to share some like awful experiences that I've had with medical doctors the past year. Part of adding new medical doctors to your team is like, it doesn't always go well, and I talk about this a lot, but there's a lot of good doctors and there's a lot of not good doctors. In the past year, I have been met with a lot of not good ones, and the things that they have said to me are like truly unimaginable, and I cannot wait to tell you some of the things that my neurologist said to me, because it is truly laughable. It is truly laughable, and I know these people are humans, but like we also need to use a little bit of common sense in our brain. You don't need a medical degree to do that. In about 5 more weeks, I'm going to have an appointment with another neurologist. Needless to say, I'm not going back to the first one. It was absolutely awful, so I'm hoping that this next neurologist will be better. I'm not on any medication for these headaches. I don't want to be, because it's just a band-aid to whatever is going on inside of my body, because like I said, you don't go from never having a headache a day in your life to every single day, all day long, 2 years. It just doesn't happen unless there's something wrong. And I want to walk alongside a neurologist who can help me sort that out so that I can fix it, and then maybe potentially I will, like once we can figure out the cause of these headaches, maybe I can get my implant back in someday. Like I firmly believe, and that's another thing, I have so many thoughts to share in this video. I don't even care if it's an hour long. Another thing that I firmly believe at this point, like obviously something in the hearing implant surgery happened inside of me to cause these headaches, whether it's my head, my neck, I don't even know. Something happened in me to like cause these headaches. Like it just doesn't happen just because. That was a major event in my life that happened, major surgery, and I've never been the same 6 months after that. So if there's a cause, medication is not going to fix that. And the type of headache I'm having also, a few doctors have told me that the type of medications that they often prescribe are anticonvulsants, which are for seizures, and I don't have seizures. I've never had seizures. I don't want to start having them as a result of this medication. And so I respectfully declined. So I've just been coping with them every single day, and I think people think that it's not for anybody to have a thought about, like it's my own experience. But people look at my Instagram and they see me out doing things, going on trips, and like, wow, like you must be feeling so much better from your surgery. It's like, no, like I'm just living and continuing to do everything I have to do every day because I have to. Like, life goes on. Clearly, I've done so much to try to figure this out, and, like, it's not working. So, in the meantime, I just have to continue living because I have already missed out on so much for so many different reasons, and you just gotta keep going. Those are some things that I tried and that that my medical team and I tried and ruled out. Like, I'm thankful for no scary, like, brain tumor or anything. They did find a cyst in my brain called an arachnoid cyst. Apparently, that wouldn't be the cause of my headache based on the location of the cyst. I guess this type of cyst is, like, so incredibly common. Like, they consider it an incidental finding, which I find hard to believe, but nobody seems to be worried about it. It's really small, but it's a cyst of spinal fluid that accumulates in your brain, and apparently this is likely something that a lot of people are born with. I don't know, maybe get a second opinion on that, but I really don't know. Like, I've just gone through so much to try to rule out these headaches, and then honestly, I've just had to take a break from trying to analyze it because sometimes it just becomes too much because I've got so many different opinions, and they all seem to end up with, I don't know. It's just not really, it's not encouraging. I'm grateful that the Lord carried me through the surgery well, to have it removed, and I didn't face any complications with the surgery. Obviously, that was a really hard day. Another difficult part of this, every single time I've gone through an unimaginable circumstance, there has been something good come out of it. With this, if I'm honest, like there really hasn't been, and we shouldn't go out in life with like, what am I gonna get from this experience? It shouldn't be like that, you know, but like kind of like what keeps me going is like, I know something good is gonna come from this that has in the past. Not to say that it won't, and God works on his own timeline. All of Jesus' disciples, like, many of them waited decades for certain prayers to be answered, and so I don't know what the Lord has in store for me in this experience and this journey yet, and I am still very much expectant of what he will continue to do in me and in my heart. I think it's just also important to realize, like, not let the things of this world become your idol. I don't think that I like to think that I didn't allow the implant to become my idol. And I hope that I did. Obviously, like I said, it's not wrong of me to enjoy it. It was a gift for the 6 months that I had it. But it is just important to remember to, like, not realize the things of this world and even our abilities, because it could be gone in an instant. 3 things, especially from scripture, that I have clung to during this time is that we are to consider it joy when we face trials, and that the Lord is near and close to the brokenhearted. From Job 121, the Lord gives and takes away. Let the name of the Lord be praised. I wish that I would be able to come on here and say that I am fully accepting of this circumstance, this outcome, but it is still very much a thing that I struggle with. In the same way I am obviously healing and continuing to do everything that I need to do, continuing to go out and enjoy doing the things that I love. I know this was a really long video, but I just wanted to share a lot of the things that I have, like, obviously learned and had to surrender, and just my experience is really unheard of. Like, I have yet to hear from somebody that's had an experience like this. I do find a doctor who comes across something really obvious in me that would be the cause of my headaches, and I am cured, then maybe I can get my hearing implant back, and like maybe this just a season of a test of my faith. Maybe it was just to teach me something. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know what the Lord has or his purpose in this, but I continue to show up expectant every day of what he will continue to do in my life and in the trials. Do my best to consider them joy and focus on the abundant blessings that the Lord has given me. It has been a trial of a lifetime. I just want to share because I have shared the greatest joys of this journey, and I felt like I owed you guys the outcome because I had shared everything up until this point. But obviously I am not going to give up on finding a, I guess, cure, like a reason why these headaches started. I truly believe there's a reason, and I truly believe that It's not something that can't be reversed. Like, I believe that I will get better. One other thing I did just want to share, I think what made this extra difficult is because my hearing loss journey was so close to it. Again, check out that playlist. It has so much information about how I lost my hearing and all that I was faced with that. But like having this implant, like it felt like me that I was able to close that chapter, and like this isn't me saying like, oh, poor me, like we all face challenges, but like I face so many challenges I'll never be able to physically do anything about. These are just my circumstances, and I enjoy in them, and like I'm grateful, like don't get me wrong, but the reality is like I do face so many challenges that like I'll never be able to do on my own, like things that I don't have control over. This was something that I could do something about, or so I thought. But it also goes to show like just how little we don't have any control pretty much in this life. Like God gives us free will, and like we make certain decisions. Like obviously there are good decisions and bad decisions, but something like this, like there's so little that we have control over in this life. That's another aspect that made this experience really difficult. But I am doing okay and will continue to persevere. As always, life is worth fighting for, and God has blessed me so abundantly, and I'm so grateful for your prayers during this trial and just being here for me to share my story, all the ups and downs. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any other questions, please leave them in the comments. If I get a bunch more questions, then I will do a Q&A, but I feel like I did a good job of doing the FAQ portion of this. Let me know if I missed anything, and I can do a Q&A. Thank you guys so much for listening, and I will see you in my next video that will be a lot more uplifting. Bye guys.